In the vast expanse of space, humanity had always wondered if we were alone. That question was answered on a quiet Tuesday morning when massive ships darkened the skies above every major city on Earth. Their hulls gleamed like polished obsidian, stretching for kilometers across our atmosphere. The world held its breath, united for the first time in history by a shared sense of awe and terror. I was working my shift at the Global Defense Command Center when it happened. As Chief of Communications, I'd spent years scanning the stars for signs of intelligent life. Now, staring at my console's readings, I almost couldn't believe what I was seeing. The energy signatures were off the charts, unlike anything our sensors had ever detected. "Sir," my colleague called out, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The translation matrix is processing their message." The next few minutes felt like hours as we waited, the only sound the soft hum of computers and rapid typing as analysts worked to decode the alien transmission. When it finally came through, the message was clear and unexpected. "Greetings, inhabitants of Sol 3. This is Admiral Venn of the Galactic Empire's expansion fleet. Your system has been selected for integration into our empire. Prepare for preliminary assessment and classification." Integration. Classification. Such sterile words for what we all knew meant conquest. Humanity had barely taken its first steps into space, and here was an empire that spanned the stars, ready to swallow us whole. But they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed we would simply roll over and accept their authority. The emergency meeting of the United Earth Council was convened within the hour. Representatives from every nation gathered virtually, faces grim as they processed the situation. The alien ships maintained their positions, a silent threat looming over our cities. Their technology was centuries ahead of ours, their ships numerous enough to overwhelm any conventional defense we might mount. But humans have never been conventional. As I sat in that meeting, watching world leaders debate our response, I couldn't help but think about our history. Every time someone had tried to build an empire on Earth, they'd eventually learned that some things just couldn't be conquered. The human spirit was one of them. The Council's decision was unanimous, something unprecedented in itself. Earth would not bow. We would not be classified, integrated, or subjugated, but our response needed to be clever, needed to show these aliens that humanity wasn't just another primitive species to be added to their collection. We had 72 hours before the Empire expected our formal reply. 72 hours to prepare something that would make them think twice about trying to conquer Earth. Teams of scientists, military strategists, and diplomats worked around the clock, combining their expertise in ways never before imagined. What we came up with wasn't a weapon or a defense system. It was something far more powerful, something that would show the Galactic Empire exactly who they were dealing with. As I prepared to transmit our response to the alien fleet, I couldn't help but smile. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species, but they were about to learn why humans had survived every catastrophe, every challenge our harsh world had thrown at us. The message we sent back was short, but it would change the course of human history forever. As I pressed the transmission button, I knew we were either about to witness humanity's greatest triumph or its last stand. Either way, the Galactic Empire was about to learn that Earth wasn't just another planet to be added to their collection. We were something else entirely. Our response to the Galactic Empire was deceptively simple. We transmitted a comprehensive historical record, not of our technological achievements or military capabilities, but of our countless stories of resistance against overwhelming odds. From ancient civilizations to modern times, we showed them how humanity had faced extinction-level events, pandemic diseases, and natural disasters, yet emerged stronger each time. The massive data package included something else too, detailed accounts of every empire that had tried to rule Earth and how each had ultimately failed. Their own historical records would tell them we were technologically inferior, but we wanted them to understand that humanity's strength wasn't in our weapons or ships. It was in our sheer, stubborn refusal to submit. The alien fleet remained silent for 6 hours after receiving our transmission. When they finally responded, their message was different. Gone was the bureaucratic tone of their initial communication. Admiral Ven's holographic projection appeared in command centers worldwide, his humanoid features twisted in what I assumed was confusion. "Your species presents an unusual case," he stated, multiple sets of eyes blinking in sequence. "Our preliminary scans indicated a level 3 civilization, yet your historical records suggest behavioral patterns inconsistent with this classification. We require clarification." Behind me, the general who'd been pacing our command center for hours finally cracked a smile. We managed to puzzle them, something I suspected didn't happen often to a spacefaring empire that had likely conquered hundreds of worlds. The next 48 hours were a flurry of activity as we engaged in the strangest diplomatic exchange in human history. The empire's representatives seemed genuinely baffled by human nature. They couldn't comprehend how a species could simultaneously be so fractured yet so unified in the face of external threats, so technologically limited yet so adaptable. "You mean to tell me," one of their cultural analysts transmitted, "that your species willingly jumps out of perfectly functional aircraft for entertainment?" We sent them footage of base jumping, mountain climbing, and deep-sea exploration. We showed them how humans had reached the highest peaks and deepest oceans before we even mastered basic spaceflight. Their confusion only seemed to grow. But it wasn't all going our way. Our long-range sensors detected more Empire ships arriving at the edge of our solar system. Whatever we were doing had attracted attention. Whether good or bad remains to be seen. The tension in every military installation worldwide ratcheted up another notch. I was reviewing their latest transmission when one of our analysts burst into the command center, tablet in hand. She discovered something in the Empire's cultural database they'd shared, something that changed everything about our understanding of the situation. The Empire had encountered resistance before, but never quite like this, never from a species that seemed to thrive on challenge itself. As I studied the data, a plan began forming in my mind. If we were right about this, there might be a way to turn this invasion into something entirely different. But it would require every ounce of humanity's infamous audacity, and we'd only get one shot at it. I requested an immediate audience with the United Earth Council. As I waited for the secure connection, I watched the alien ships through our command center's window. They hung there, dark against the evening sky, like questions waiting to be answered. We were about to either save Earth or doom it, and the difference would come down to whether we correctly understood the one critical weakness in the Empire's seemingly perfect system. The council meeting light turned green. It was time to share what we discovered, and to propose what might be the most audacious plan in human history. The council chamber fell silent as I finished presenting our discovery. What we'd found in the Empire's cultural database was astounding. They had never encountered a species that voluntarily put themselves in dangerous situations. Their entire classification system was built around the assumption that intelligent life would always choose the safest, most logical path forward. We were about to shatter that assumption completely. Our plan was simple, yet so characteristically human it almost made me laugh. We would challenge the Empire to a competition, not of military might or technology, but of pure human audacity. The kind that had driven us to cross oceans in wooden boats and strap ourselves to rockets just to see what was out there. "This is madness," the Russian representative muttered, but I could see the gleam in his eyes. The same gleam was reflected in every face on the screen, because madness, that was humanity's specialty. Within hours, we had drafted our proposal to the Empire. We would demonstrate our worth not through submission to their classifications, but through a series of challenges that would showcase humanity's unique approach to impossibility. The transmission went out, and the waiting began. Admiral Ven's response came faster than expected. The holographic projection showed more emotions than we'd seen yet: confusion, curiosity, and something that looked almost like excitement. "You propose to prove your species' value through voluntary risk-taking activities. We propose to show you why Earth doesn't fit into your classification system," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite my racing heart, "and why trying to conquer us would be more trouble than it's worth." The Empire's ships began moving, repositioning themselves in a new formation. Global defense systems tracked their movement, but I urged everyone to hold steady. This was either the beginning of our salvation or the start of our extinction. What happened next would be recorded in every human history book for generations to come. The Empire accepted our challenge, but with a condition that made my blood run cold. They would select the trials, and if we failed any of them, Earth would submit to immediate integration into the Empire. As the details of their chosen challenges began coming through, I watched the color drain from faces around the command center. They hadn't just picked difficult tasks. They'd designed them to be practically impossible by their own standards. The first challenge alone seemed like a death sentence. But as I looked around at my fellow humans, I didn't see defeat. I saw determination, the same determination that had taken us from caves to skyscrapers, from stone tools to spacecraft. The Empire thought they were setting us up to fail, but they still didn't understand what they were dealing with. We had 48 hours to prepare for the first challenge. Across the globe, humanity united in a way we never had before. Every nation offered their best people. Every research facility worked around the clock. We weren't just fighting for our independence anymore. We were fighting to show the galaxy exactly what humans were capable of. As I watched the preparations unfold, I realized that win or lose, the Empire was about to learn a lesson they'd never forget, because what they saw as impossible challenges, we saw as Wednesday. The first challenge seemed designed to push human limits beyond breaking point. The Empire had constructed a massive obstacle course in Earth's orbit, a deadly maze of gravitational anomalies, radiation fields, and temporal distortions. Our task was simple on paper: navigate through it in vessels of our own design. The catch? Their calculations showed a 99.97% chance of failure. What they hadn't counted on was that humans had been beating impossible odds since we first crawled out of the primordial soup. As I watched our chosen pilots prepare for the challenge, something unexpected happened. A transmission came through from one of the smaller Empire ships, encrypted on a frequency their command wasn't monitoring. "Your species intrigues us," the message read. "There are those within the Empire who question the wisdom of our expansion protocols. Succeed in these trials, and you may find you have more allies than you know." Internal division in the seemingly monolithic Empire. This changed everything. But before I could fully process this new information, alarms blared across the command center. Our deep space sensors had detected another fleet approaching, not Empire ships, but something else entirely. Something that made the Empire's vessels shift into defensive formations. Admiral Ven's next transmission contained something I never expected to hear in his carefully modulated voice. "Urgency. We are detecting approach vectors of the swarm," he announced. "They are drawn to concentrations of advanced technology. Our presence here has attracted them." The swarm. Even in their limited cultural data sharing, the Empire had mentioned this threat, a mindless, consuming force that devoured civilizations, and we had just become the latest all-you-can-eat buffet in their path. Suddenly, our challenge took on a new dimension. The Empire's obstacle course was no longer just a test. It had become a potential battleground. We needed to prove ourselves not only capable of surviving the Empire's trials, but also defending our solar system from an imminent threat. The United Earth Council convened an emergency session. The choice before us was stark. We could use this new threat to negotiate with the Empire, possibly gaining protection in exchange for submission. Or we could do something typically human, face both challenges head-on and show two advanced alien civilizations why you don't mess with Earth. Our pilots, already strapped into their experimental vessels, sent a unanimous message to the Council: "Let us fly. We'll deal with the Empire's course first, then worry about the space bugs." As I watched the final preparations, a thought struck me. The Empire's first challenge, this impossible obstacle course, had been designed to break us. But with the swarm approaching, it might actually save us. If we could master navigation through gravitational anomalies and temporal distortions, we'd have an advantage the swarm wouldn't expect. The Empire's observers watched in silence as our pilots began their final countdown. On our long-range sensors, the swarm's approach continued, a cloud of death slowly making its way toward our solar system. Admiral Ven's ship maintained its position above Earth, caught between protocol and pragmatism. Everything we planned, everything we prepared for, was about to change. But that's the thing about humans. We do our best work when the plan falls apart. As the launch sequence began, I couldn't help but smile. The Empire was about to learn why Earth had survived every catastrophe thrown at it. And the swarm. They were about to learn why you should never, ever back humans into a corner. Our pilots' engines ignited, lighting up the night sky like new stars being born. The next few hours would either see humanity rise to heights never imagined, or, well, we don't plan for failure. We never have. Our pilots launched into the obstacle course with a precision that made my heart swell with pride. The Empire's observers watched in stunned silence as our ships, crude by their standards, danced through the gravitational anomalies. Where their simulations predicted disaster, human intuition and reflexes found paths that shouldn't have existed. That's when we revealed our secret weapon, not advanced technology, but the hours human pilots had spent in virtual reality simulations, practicing moves that defied conventional physics. Every video game player who'd ever pulled off an impossible maneuver had contributed to this moment. The Empire had built their course assuming logical, calculated approaches. We showed them what happened when you added human creativity and improvisation to the mix. But halfway through the course, the swarm arrived. Their ships, if you could call them that, looked like a dark cloud of metallic insects, consuming everything in their path. The Empire's fleet immediately began defensive maneuvers, their formation perfect and predictable. The swarm, having encountered this before, adapted quickly. What happened next wasn't in anyone's playbook. Our pilots, already weaving through the obstacle course, did something that made both the Empire and the swarm pause. They started using the course itself as a weapon. Gravitational anomalies became slingshots, radiation fields turned into traps, and temporal distortions became strategic advantages. This is impossible. Admiral Ven's transmission crackled through our comms. Your ships shouldn't even be able to withstand those forces, let alone weaponize them. He was right. Our ships were being torn apart, but the pilots kept going, held together by emergency patches, sheer willpower, and what could only be described as duct tape and prayers. The swarm, encountering this chaotic defense for the first time, couldn't adapt fast enough. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of our pilots, her ship barely functioning, deliberately triggered a cascade of temporal distortions. The Empire's sensors went crazy, their careful calculations rendered useless. The swarm, caught in the distortion field, found their unified consciousness disrupted for the first time in their history. Now, I transmitted the signal we've been waiting for. Across Earth, hidden defense systems activated, not advanced weapons, but thousands of modified radio telescopes. We broadcast into the distortion field a signal that our scientists had discovered in the Empire's cultural database, the exact resonance frequency that disrupted the swarm's hive mind. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The swarm, for the first time ever, broke formation. Individual units scattered, their collective intelligence shattered. The Empire's fleet, recovering from the temporal cascade, watched in astonishment as humans, the supposedly primitive species, accomplished what they'd never managed, finding a way to defeat the swarm without destroying them. But we weren't done. As the swarm retreated, our pilots completed the obstacle course, every single one of them making it through. Damaged, barely flying, but alive. Admiral Ven's next transmission was delayed, as if he was struggling to process what he'd seen. "We have miscalculated," he finally admitted. "Your species defies classification. The Empire has never. We have never." That's when the final twist revealed itself. The encrypted transmission from earlier switched to an open channel. A faction within the Empire, led by younger races who opposed the old ways, openly declared their support for Earth. They'd been watching, waiting for a species that could prove the Empire's classification system was flawed. Admiral Ven, faced with both Earth's victory and internal division, made an unprecedented decision. Earth would not be classified or integrated. Instead, we were being offered something no species had ever received: partnership status, with full autonomy. As celebrations erupted across the globe, I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. The Empire had come to conquer us and ended up starting a revolution within their own ranks. The swarm had come to devour us and instead learned fear and humanity. We'd done what we always do, faced the impossible, broke all the rules, and somehow came out stronger. But as I watched the Empire's ships prepare to depart, a final message came through that made me realize our adventure was just beginning. "Prepare yourselves," it read. "The galaxy is about to change, and Earth will be at the center of it all." In the weeks that followed, Earth underwent a transformation unlike anything in human history. The partnership with the Empire opened doors we hadn't even known existed, but we kept our promise to do things our way. The first change came when we helped establish an intergalactic sports league, because of course humans would turn deadly obstacle courses into a competitive event. Our victory over the swarm had unexpected ripples throughout the galaxy. Other species, long suppressed by the Empire's rigid classification system, began reaching out. They weren't looking for Earth's technology. They wanted to learn our way of thinking, our ability to find solutions where none seemed to exist. Admiral Venn, to everyone's surprise, became one of our strongest advocates. During his final address before departing Earth's orbit, he said something that would be quoted in history books for generations. In seeking to classify humanity, we forgot the most important lesson of the universe, that true intelligence isn't about having all the answers, but about never stopping to ask questions. The reformist faction within the Empire grew stronger, inspired by Earth's example. The classification system was gradually replaced with something more flexible, more inclusive. They started calling it the human factor, the recognition that progress doesn't always follow a predictable path. As for the swarm, they didn't disappear entirely. Instead, something fascinating happened. The scattered units, freed from their hive mind, began developing individual consciousness. Some even requested asylum on Earth, eager to understand the species that had given them freedom they never knew they wanted. Back in the Global Defense Command Center, life changed too. My job shifted from scanning the stars for threats to coordinating with alien species who wanted to learn the Earth way of problem solving. We started an exchange program, sending human instructors throughout the galaxy to teach our unique approach to challenges. In return, we learned about technologies and cultures we'd never imagined. The best part? We never lost our edge. If anything, humanity became more adventurous, more innovative. Now when someone said something was impossible, we had an entire galaxy of impossibilities to prove wrong. 1 year after the Empire's arrival, we held a global celebration, not of our victory, but of the changes it had brought. As I watched ships from across the galaxy arrive, some Empire, some former swarm, some from species we were just getting to know, I thought about how close we'd come to being just another classified and controlled world. Instead, we'd become something else entirely, a beacon for change in a galaxy that desperately needed it, not because we were the strongest or the most advanced, but because we never learned to accept limitations. The final transmission I received that day came from a young Empire pilot, part of the new generation embracing change. "You know what scares us most about humans," she wrote. "Not your adaptability, not your creativity, but your ability to make the impossible seem inevitable. Please never stop doing that." I smiled as I typed my response. Don't worry. For humans, impossible is just the starting point. As I walked home that evening, looking up at a sky now filled with friendly ships instead of threats, I realized something profound. The Empire had come to Earth expecting to find just another species to categorize. Instead, they'd found something they didn't even have a classification for: hope. Because that's what humans do best. We don't just overcome challenges, we transform them into opportunities. And now we had an entire galaxy to prove it to. The stars don't look quite so distant anymore. They look like home.